This is the story of Solomon, the wisest, richest, and most powerful king in the history. His wisdom, a gift from God, made Israel a beacon of wealth and power, with trade routes that stretched to the ends of the known world. Under Solomon's reign, Israel reached unprecedented heights, becoming a land of prosperity and peace. But behind the splendor of his kingdom, Solomon had a weakness that would become his undoing. He was captivated by women, and not just a few. His heart was drawn to a harem of 700 wives and 300 concubines, each woman hailing from a different corner of the world, bringing with her the customs, traditions, and gods of her people. Despite his unmatched wisdom, Solomon's love for these women led him down a dark path, causing him to stray from the very principles that had made him great. Join us as we explore the life of Solomon, a king blessed with everything, yet undone by his own desires. Discover how the wisest man in history allowed his heart to lead him astray, and learn the timeless lessons from his rise and fall. Solomon's birth was marked by God's mercy. His father, David, had committed a grievous sin, taking Bathsheba, the wife of Uriah, as his own. The child born from that union died, but in their grief, David and Bathsheba turned back to the Lord, and God showed them mercy. God, in his infinite grace, chose to bring something beautiful out of the brokenness. Solomon was that gift, a child destined to bring peace and prosperity to Israel. Solomon's upbringing in the royal court was deeply influenced by his father David's experiences. David, the warrior king, imparted to Solomon not only the importance of military strength but also the necessity of justice, wisdom, and a deep relationship with God. Solomon was young when he ascended the throne, at around 20 years old, following David's death. His claim to the throne was not without challenge. His older brother Adonijah had declared himself king before David's death, but Nathan the prophet, Bathsheba, and other key advisors ensured that Solomon was anointed as the rightful king. Once on the throne, Solomon faced the daunting task of securing his position and stabilizing the kingdom. He quickly demonstrated his wisdom in handling these early challenges, establishing his authority by addressing potential threats, including his brother Adonijah. With the kingdom secure, Solomon turned his attention to God, asking not for wealth or the death of his enemies, but for wisdom to govern Israel justly. God, pleased with Solomon's request, granted him wisdom that surpassed any other, along with unprecedented wealth and honor. Under Solomon's rule, Israel entered a golden age. The kingdom flourished, becoming a hub of trade and diplomacy. Solomon forged alliances with distant realms, from Egypt to Sheba, and beyond. The wealth of Israel grew as traders brought goods from all corners of the world, filling the royal treasuries with gold, silver, spices, and precious stones. Solomon's wisdom became legendary, attracting visitors from far-off lands, eager to witness the splendor of his court and to hear his judgments. However, as Solomon's fame and influence grew, so did the temptations that came with power. With great wisdom came great responsibility, and great temptation. Solomon's wisdom brought him prosperity, but it also exposed him to the complexities of ruling a vast and diverse kingdom. To secure his reign and expand his influence, Solomon began to marry women from the surrounding nations. Each marriage was a strategic alliance, meant to ensure peace and strengthen political ties. Daughter after daughter of foreign kings became his wife, 700 in all, along with 300 concubines, an astonishing number even by the standards of ancient kings. Each marriage brought new wealth, new treaties, and new gods. Among his wives was a princess from Egypt, her mysterious eyes reflecting the ancient wisdom and mystique of her homeland. There were women from the Moabites, Ammonites, Edomites, Sidonians, and Hittites, each representing powerful and influential families. But here's where the story takes a turn. You see, these marriages weren't just about politics. They were about the heart. They were strategic alliances meant to ensure peace, secure trade routes, and expand Israel's influence. Solomon's court became a melting pot of cultures, languages, and religions, each woman bringing her own influence into the heart of Israel. The young king who once prayed for wisdom above all else was now indulging in the luxuries of his position. The foreign wives brought with them their gods, their customs, and their demands. And Solomon, ever the diplomat, sought to please them all. Though Solomon had built the magnificent temple in Jerusalem, dedicated to the worship of Yahweh, the once homogeneous worship of Yahweh in Israel became diluted as these foreign gods found a foothold, starting with the private chapels and eventually extending to public altars that Solomon himself ordered to be built. The Lord had warned the kings of Israel not to multiply wives, not to seek alliances with foreign nations, lest their hearts be led astray. But Solomon, in his pursuit of greatness, fell into that very trap. He built altars to gods like Ashtoreth and Molech, trying to keep peace in his household and in his kingdom. But the peace that Solomon sought through these marriages was an illusion, because it came at the cost of his relationship with God. And so, the consequences began to unfold. The kingdom, once united under David, began to show cracks. The people, following their king's example, turned to idolatry. And the Lord, angered by Solomon's actions, declared that the kingdom would be torn from his descendants. After Solomon's death, the great kingdom of Israel would split into two, north and south, leading to centuries of strife, war, and eventually, exile. But here's the twist. In his later years, Solomon, the man who had everything, wisdom, wealth, power, began to reflect on his life. In the book of Ecclesiastes, he writes with a tone of regret, meaningless. Meaningless. Everything is meaningless. He saw that all the wealth, all the power, all the women, none of it satisfied. He realized that in his quest for greatness, he had lost the very thing that truly mattered, a heart devoted to God. So, what do we learn from Solomon's life? That even the wisest among us can be led astray if we let our desires overshadow our devotion. Solomon's 1,000 women were symbols of his pursuit of power, pleasure, and peace. But they were also the instruments of his downfall. The story of Solomon isn't just a cautionary tale, it's a reminder that true peace, true satisfaction, and true wisdom come from walking faithfully with God. The man who had been blessed with unmatched wisdom and wealth had, in his later years, become a tragic figure. Solomon's story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of letting power, wealth, and indulgence overshadow one's devotion to God. His upbringing and early years were full of promise, but his later choices led to a legacy of division and spiritual decline. In the end, Solomon's life reminds us that wisdom alone is not enough to sustain a righteous life. It must be accompanied by a steadfast heart and unwavering devotion to God, something that even the wisest man who ever lived struggled to maintain.